The Apple Watch Series 10 is here. It has the biggest display ever. It's also the thinnest Apple Watch ever, making it even more comfortable on your wrist, whether you're running, swimming, or sleeping. And it's the fastest charging Apple Watch, getting you 8 hours of charge in just 15 minutes. The Apple Watch Series 10, available for the first time in glossy jet black aluminum. Compared to previous generations, iPhone XS or later required. Charge time and actual results will vary.
What's up, everybody? This is Dark Macek with Brutally Delicious, coming at you with a review of Dirkschneider's brand new album, Balls to the Wall Reloaded. Okay, so just like it sounds, this is Udo Dirkschneider and a cast of merry men re-recording the classic Accept album, Balls to the Wall, in its entirety. So, Accept from this era, meaning the early 80s, is some of the most venerated heavy metal out there. In fact, I strongly doubt anybody listening to this hasn't heard the original Balls to the Wall before. So these songs are already all well known. I don't need to talk about which of those are my favorite or which one has a great chorus, because we already know that. Instead, let's just talk about this fantastic package. The coolest thing is that, I think with one exception, they're all in the original key, which for a singer singing that high in his 70s, wow. I think Ozzy had to tune down by the time he was 35, and that material is a lot less challenging than this stuff. What's also really cool to me is that the production is still classic, with the exception of the drums. And to me anyway, that's the best possible thing they could have done. We don't need to hear uber heavy chugging guitars on these tracks, but making the drums come up a bit from how they sounded in 1984 or whatever, that's a great move. And perhaps the most standout thing here is that every single track has a guest vocalist. We'll talk about some highlights, but they definitely add to it. I think Udo knew that it's hard to compete with nostalgia, so they had to make this one special. Last thing before I start talking about some standouts, the guitar solos and all of that is just different enough to keep you listening, but still very true to the original. Don't worry, you can sing along with the da 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 and Balls to the Wall. Okay, so on the classic title track, we have Joakim Brodén of SABATON. This is a really funny matchup, because stylistically, they both kind of have the, pseudo Macho Man thing going. I think Brodén is a little more self-aware of how silly it is, but it's a really good pairing. Joakim is clearly straining here, and I think he would be the first one to tell you that it's pretty high for his voice, but the end result is just so much cooler. I kind of think he was born to sing this song. London Leather Boys with Bill Byford of Saxon. It's funny getting a British singer to do this. I wonder, was Rob Halford busy? Because, he's got the whole leather getup. But still, cool collaboration, good job. Mela Petroza of Creator on Fight It Back. Nice three-peat, because those are the first three on the album, and I thought it was really cool for Udo to acknowledge some people who came after him. Now, we already had that with Brodén, but maybe it's just in my head. I get the idea that when people lose their virginities, they stop discovering new music, and that's clearly not the case here. Mikael Kiske of Halloween on Losing More Than You've Ever Had. This was an amazing choice, and by far my favorite. Killer harmonies, killer backing vocals, and somewhat ironically, even though the vocalists are both from Germany, it's like the two most different styles of metal singing there is. You have one who's this pristine, angelic tenor, and one who's gruff and also a tenor, but delivered very differently. Nice juxtaposition. Turn Me On. This is actually one of my favorites from the original album. This is the one where they drop the key, and I just have to ask, why? Was it for guest star Danko Jones? I don't know. I think it would have been better still at F sharp. And last but certainly not least, this might have been Dee Snider's best vocal performance ever. His guest on Losers and Winners. You can tell he was really trying to give it his all here. He easily could have phoned it in. I mean, he's Dee Snider. He's probably collecting $1 million a year just in licensing fees. But he actually cared about this one, and it shows. Okay, so I'm often pretty skeptical of album re-records. I did like the one Exodus did, despite what most fans say, but this one was totally worth it, precisely because they didn't try to make it sound like it was recorded by John Petrucci on guitar. Instead, it almost felt like a tribute show with a bunch of guests up there. You know how Ozzy does that Ozzy and Friends thing every so often? More just like a really good celebration rather than a cash grab. Killer job with this, dudes. Thanks. Rock on.
This is the story of Whitney Houston.
This is the story of Kurt Cobain.
Of George Michael, of Otis Redding, of Amy Winehouse, of Michael Hutchence, Bob Marley. This is the story of Prince.
It's a new podcast series
about how they died, why they died, and why we're still talking about them so long after.
It's like nothing you've ever heard before.
It's storytelling.
But it's more than that, because rock stars,
they tell us how we feel. They change our mood.
They change the clothes we wear, the people we hang out with,
the way we remember things.
It's them who give us those ludicrous moments, the ones where you're
jumping around, singing your heart out, feeling understood.
And it's those moments we'll help you remember, the ones you're thinking about right now.
That feeling.
That feeling.
It's coming soon from Crowd Network.
Just search for Death of a Rock Star on your podcast app.
And subscribe now.